It's safer. I don't work in a bank and give anyone financial advice by any means. But because of my time in the cohort and becoming empowered and having the right tools and understanding that I get to do the fun stuff like philanthropy, I had to take on the responsibility of being a part of the banking world, so to speak.
Welcome back to another episode of The Family Wealth Edge with my friend and colleague, Kristen Heaney. Hello, Kristen.
Hello.
And we are joined today by an uber duper special guest, Celine Fitzgerald. Celine?
Don't get people that excited about saying super duper guest. They might be disappointed after the clip.
No, Celine, you are super duper because not only are you, I don't know, I guess an OG of the very first Rising Gen peer cohort from way back in 2019, but the way that it impacted you, I think, has sort of changed your life. And so it's really cool to hear that story, and super cool to Vincent and I that we got to be a part of that. And so I'm super excited to have you join today. And I think also excited to kind of reminisce about those days as well.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited, and congrats on you two launching this new venture. Excited to listen in every week and see who you guys bring on.
Well, you're our first.
Scary.
It's a labor of love, as they say. When Kristen and I were talking about we should have a guest on, you're the first person that came to mind.
God.
So September 2019.
Mm-hmm.
It was a warm Boston weekend, I remember. But,
yeah, our only time that we did an in-person kickoff, because that was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So it's good to be all together.
Why don't you give us some background, Celine, about you, a little bit of who you are, what you're doing today, and then really, if you can, reminisce about that night, what your thoughts were coming in.
I can give you thoughts.
To the cohort. Yeah, let's hear it.
That's why we love you.
Okay. Well, yes, Celine Fitzgerald. I'm a G3 family member in Chicago. I did spend several years in New York, but Chicago, of course, brought me back. My dad and I started a single family office in the summer of 2019, kind of perfect timing before I somehow agreed to do the cohort. Kicking and screaming, I suppose. But yes, it changed my life. We'll get into that. So yeah, we started the single family office in 2019. I had just graduated at Loyola Chicago with my master's, but had interned in the Family Business Center. And that at, I don't know, we'll say I was 31, 32, was my first entrance into this whole world of what it meant to be a wealth inheritor, a beneficiary, a steward, you name it, part of a family business, because as the old saying goes, wealthy people don't talk about money, especially with their kids, which is kind of scary when you hit your 30s and, really should be a little bit more ahead. But I've like to think I've played many years of catch up and will continue to do so as a forever learner. So when I got that call from one of our mutual friends, Jim Cottray, about joining the cohort, I said, I'm going to stop you right there. Absolutely not. I'm not going to sit with a bunch of pretentious kids, adults, whatever, and talk about God knows what and how they spend their money. He's like, no. These two facilitators are so different. They're so different. I promise it won't be anything like that. And I was like, Jim, I don't know you from Adam, but okay, I guess we'll give it a shot. So I showed up in Boston. And of course, I am very set in my ways, and no one had told me the time of the start of the one day. So I had to schedule a Barry's class. So I showed up that day in a sweaty Barry's outfit, not caring at all how I presented myself, which, at least people had met me the night before at the dinner. So maybe they kind of understood my sarcastic nature. But yes, I came in hot. I was very unsure of what to expect. But the both of you really created a warm, confidential, safe space that started obviously that weekend and then transferred through the whole year, because at that point it was going on for a year, and then ever since. So it's the magic that the two of you brought and the really thoughtful curriculum that changed the lives of so many.
Well, Vincent, can we hop into your mindset during That morning, Celine comes in. She's like, I tried to squeeze in a workout. Like, I'm squeezing in your little thing that you're doing. It better not suck. Do you remember
I
what
was
you
like
were
running.
thinking when Celine came in like that?
It was all pretty intense, if you remember, Kristen. It was the first one that we co-launched, that you launched, and I helped. I was your able aid that weekend, along with another dear friend of ours, Kaylee. It was, to think back, it's been that many years, Celine. It's incredible to see the journey where I was going to make the joke. Now we can't get rid of you.
No, you can't. Sadly, I'm on the payroll.
Well, then, I think it was kind of refreshing too, right? To see just a bit of that, just a bit of your humor and charm really shine through the first day. I remember, even debriefing that night, Kristen and I were, not that we have favorites, but you were definitely stuck out, Celine, amongst the first year participants. And I think you brought so much early on, because you really did help create that space of, we can swear. We talked about swearing. This is no bullshit zone. You can be honest and open. I
Perfect.
think that's often, but it's, Celine, as you know, building your own office and growing up in the complex world that you do and that we do. So wealth management can be a bit stuffy at times, right? And there's a time and a place for that, for sure. And there's a time and a place for human, real, no filter talk about the things that really matter. And you really brought that.
Yeah. Well, you
early on.
gotta love a skeptic, right? And I think that that's what you brought, Celine, because any other person that's coming into that environment has concerns on their mind too. They probably were also worried that this was going to be this, I don't know, like who's who and trying to impress each other. And you just right out of the gate kind of shared that as a concern. And I think it gave everyone else the opportunity to share their concerns. And essentially what that invited us to do was to build a group that was built on the shared interest of wanting to support each other and honestly just being completely honest with each other, which is exactly what created the awesome group that we had that year.
Well, and I think, Kristen, you make a good point. I've been a part of other groups. I think that was like my, hesitation, but it's not a group where people come in and it's who's who. Nobody even no one knows even last names. And if a last name is shared, nobody's last name is, not that no one's important, but nobody is, one or two on the top Forbes list. So you don't have to worry about that. No one is trying to compete for anything. No one is saying their G5 is bigger than anybody else's, which I don't have a G. So, but it's just a very,
You mean the car, right?
I think it's a plane. Did I correct? No, it's in a song. Come on. But it's a group of people that come together that just really, really want to learn and really want to be stewards for their family and really just want their voice heard, not to take over and kick their parents out of the control, but want to do this right and not mess it up. And I think that's just what's so great is somehow you keep finding all these people that really have a shared interest in that. And they downplay their, their background, which is great.
Mm.
And in terms of the content that's in the Rising Gen cohort, was it what you were looking for? It's not necessarily the technical, but you had just done an MBA with a focus on family enterprise. So can you talk about how the content met you with what you were looking to grow and develop in?
Yeah, frankly, I didn't know what I was looking for. I was hoping for someone just to tell me what to be doing in the family office because, my dad didn't really know what to tell me to be doing. But it laid the groundwork for how to properly set up that with him, alongside him, and how to step into roles that necessarily I wasn't gung-ho to step into, but knew that it was my responsibility as part of still having a second operating business that's not the original one, but still something. So it gave me the confidence, empowered me to use my voice and to do the due diligence for things that we were doing. It helped me find my purpose. I didn't feel like I had a purpose before that, because I had moved back to Chicago for a strange reason that did not pan out, and then, worked in a couple of jobs, and then, went back to grad school. So I was kind of floundering, so to speak. And then when my dad was let's start this office, it almost at first felt he was doing it out of pity because we didn't really know what it meant. And then now, obviously, 6 years later, it's not like that at all. But it took a long time to really find to my purpose. But the cohort gave me all those tools to do that.
Good. What do you think of that, of this 6 year journey, Celine? What's been your biggest learning, I guess, in this family office space? And you've been, and what's fascinating to see is the real transformation and leadership role. Not only we take it in your own life, you've married, you're starting a family, you're continuing to build a family, which is, again, from us meeting you 6 years ago to see where you're at today, and now starting to really share and amplify your voice in this space. It's quite remarkable. So kudos to you.
It is, Vincent, because we'll add this to the mix too. When she came in to the cohort program, not only was she like, I'm post-workout, I'm probably not going to like this, but also like, I thought I'd marry a guy in finance by now, but I guess now I have to figure out how to do this all myself. And so, I mean, it was just so meaningful to then sit several years later at your wedding with a guy who happens to work in finance that you were marrying, but with you having a totally different mindset, that this is really about you having become empowered to take on roles, and then also to be able to do that in a shared way across your family, which is even cooler. So yeah, if you talk about that development, it's quite a journey.
Good. Talk about it, talk about it, please.
Wait, what was the actual question now?
You've grown so much across the last 6 years.
Yes.
What has that been like for you? You really have developed a life purpose.
Yes, I've really developed a life purpose, and that's taken on many forms, I guess, of me like having to define the role. I think the biggest excitement of my role is the nonprofit aspect, whether it was taking over the donor advised fund and then creating the foundation, because after sitting with my dad many times, driving to bank board meetings, which is like a full long day, his biggest achievement is the money he can give away and like the impact that can make in the community, whether it's $100 or $100,000 or anywhere in between or over that. So to be able to really build relationships with all those grantees and understand why he likes to give to certain organizations, I think is my greatest achievement, because it just carries on his legacy, and that's what his legacy is. Yes, his legacy is banking. It's safer. I don't work in a bank and give anyone financial advice by any means. But because of my time in the cohort and becoming empowered and having the right tools and understanding that I get to do the fun stuff like philanthropy, I had to take on the responsibility of being a part of the banking world, so to speak. So taking 4 American Banking Association courses that he and I nearly failed together. And because it was for like a CFO level, and then, joining the bank board several years after driving him down there once a month, listening in, observing, asking questions, whatnot. So I do that aspect, which is not my favorite aspect because it's out of my comfort zone and I find it just much harder to absorb, but carrying on his real legacy is the philanthropy. So all those things in between, I guess, and, trying to understand other things he would like to do with his wealth creation has brought me to this spot.
And in addition to that, you're also, I don't want to say like a very active parent, from the standpoint that like you really play a hands-on role in your parenting. And in addition to that, you also have sort of this side gig of coming alongside of other rising generation family members as a coach too. So that's a lot that you juggle.
Yes. Becoming a parent 20 months ago was amazing. And I will again become a parent for the second time in 4 months. So it's a beautiful thing. And I think what brings me so much joy, and it brings Sean so much joy, but like seeing my parents, like how much they like love that is like the most beautiful thing. That they thrive on being grandparents. Like they waited so long for that. So I'm so happy to be able to give them that. But another part about being part of the family office, which gives me the flexibility, is then being able to work within 3 generations, to be able to come set along other families, and especially rising gens. And it's like my goal in life, literally, to help other rising gens advocate for themselves and speak up to their parents and their grandparents, and like not do it the way we did it, which there's nothing wrong with the way we did it. It's not the right way. So there's better ways of of learning you're going to have an inheritance and what that means and the proper education and steps for it. And in my opinion, your 30s are too late, but we've also met many people that are finding out in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. So I guess I'm blessed that 30s, was on the lower end.
30's the new 20, Celine.
30s the new, I don't feel like it, let me tell you. Struggle to get out of bed, but
it's fascinating in how, because myself, I think you know about this, I was a bit of a late, slow bloomer as well, Celine. So I think that's where our kindred spirits lies. Where I know Kristen had a different experience with her path and learning about her family's financial situation. Nothing is ideal. And I think part of what the cohort we hope to present is that the cards that you're dealt, you have to play them. And it's figuring out, and this is why we're so happy. I'm so happy about just seeing where you're at, Celine, figuring out what the role, where you fit the role that's key for you, and stepping into that responsibility. We talk a lot about this on this channel, Kristen and I, about real responsibility in family enterprise. And you've embodied that to a T. Thank you for giving back. If you can maybe take us home with one or two, unless Kristen, you have another question for Celine.
No, go for it. I like where you're heading.
Yeah, one or two kind of maybe points of advice for rising gen, or anything you'd like to suggest or take us away with, Celine.
Yes, I'll say two things. So the first thing along this journey also, or one of the things along this journey that has been really meaningful to me, is the fact that I was able to bring my sister along. So she's 7 years younger. She went through the third cohort that you guys launched. So that was height of COVID, I believe.
Yeah.
Lose track of time. And like having her a part of it, she's an entrepreneur, she's a jewelry designer, business owner, so she's not a part of the everyday, and that's okay. But getting her more involved and knowing what questions to ask and furthering her education has just been full circle and like so great. And she's doing it a decade before me, so I'm quite jealous of that. So that kind of ties in with the advice. Like if you have siblings and or cousins, depending on the magnitude of your family, really trying to come together in some way and find some common ground, whether that is with philanthropy, that's doing an education program together, planning your family meeting together, I think is so great because it keeps it going. And I think at the end of the day, that's like what my dad, hopes for by setting up certain, trusts, is that Shannon and I will, invest together or just to have this pot together, which keeps us going, which is not a concern. We have matching tattoos. I don't think we're going to be splitting up anytime soon.
To extend this podcast, Celine?
But yeah, that was a bad day when my mom found out. But we, I think like coming together alongside your generation is just like a really beautiful thing. So that's the advice I give, because we meet so many rising gens, no matter what age they are, and they say how isolating this is and how hard it can be because they can't like necessarily talk to their friend groups about it because their friend group is from a different, socioeconomic class, which there's nothing wrong with that. But many times, more than not, you have a sibling or siblings and or cousins that you can hopefully kind of connect with. And I think that's just like really a beautiful thing. And I know I'm always jealous of the big families that get together with 20 or 30 cousins. So I'm blessed at least to have one. So I would say capitalize on that while you can.
Thank you, Celine.
Thanks for sharing your story with us. I think there's so much to learn about, overcoming the things that are slightly out of your comfort zone, like coming to a peer group and going to the banking board, like all of the things that really were not necessarily inside of your comfort zone. It's cool to see how you pushing yourself outside has led to the journey of development that you now are sitting in the middle of today. I love it.
It's all because of you two. You guys pulled it out of me. So thank you.
They say you meet people you meet people along the way. So we definitely are very happy that we met you.
For the right reason.